Hi, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, we're going to be going over challenge mode Atlantea. We'll go over different strategies, talk about some cheats that are involved in some of the fights, as well as some alternate strategies if you aren't doing storms, which is going to be predominantly what this video is about, but I will be giving additional info if you were to run this with randoms or just on team up, or if you're just running different schools. I'll give you guys some advice of what you can do in majority of all the fights. So if you do enjoy this type of content, remember to leave a like and subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment. It helps out with the algorithm more than a lot of people realize, so definitely do that if you guys haven't. And everything I show in this video will be in the Discord at some point in the next couple of days, so be sure to join Discord as I always say in the videos. I know some people also wonder, where do I farm spell elements, or where do I farm all the other bosses and stuff like that. There's videos already on the channel. There's already a spell element guide on where to farm the spell elements on the channel, as well as if you want to farm sand squid, which I won't be mentioning in this video because I know it is Atlantea, but I don't want to include it in this video. I have a separate video talking about all the secret bosses in Atlantea on challenge mode, so just watch that video instead if you were looking to do sand squid. As well as there's already a video on the channel talking about Mount Olympus, so be sure to check that as well. And then later this week there should be a video on Hades and basically Tartarus. And if you're trying to do Sisyphus on challenge mode, there's a video on it. It's just basically a spell element video. Just watch that. In that video I talk about challenge mode Sisyphus. Now that we got all the little introductions out the way, let's go over some deck setups. I'm gonna start doing this now whenever there's dungeons involved, when it's like multiple battles. I do have to do deck setups, so I will be talking about deck setups in this video. Now, Person 1's deck setup is a little bit niche, but you are going to have to do storm weaving. You do need at least rank 1, and you do need a balance mastery. Now, of course, if you don't want to run a balance mastery and manipulate school pips, by all means go for it. You just have to set your starting pip to storm, and then after that you have to switch your pip to the next round to storm. So just remember that if you are doing some school pip manipulation. If not, just literally run a balance mastery with storm pips. That is something you can do as well. But when it comes to the things that you do need donate power. Now you are using donate power for the 2-round strats on most of these fights. For the other strats, you can literally just use like donate pips that you can just train. But for some of the strats that if you're trying to 2-round it, I do recommend donate power. Now some people do use Stormlord instead of Sirens, but I prefer using Sirens for the more damage. If you just want to use Stormlord in the fights, you're by all means just drop the donate power for donate pips and make the storm at the end carry Stormlord instead of Sirens. But I prefer Sirens, as I always say. And then you do need Windstorm. This can be from a jewel. There's multiple sources you can get the jewel from. You can craft it or you can go farm it. If not, you can just literally use treasure card. But if you do end up using treasure card, please pack multiple windstorms, because you are doing multiple fights. So just be sure to check the strategies of how many windstorms you need, and then just basically convert that into treasure cards. Windstorm treasure cards are very easy to get, so if you are struggling with the jewel, just use treasure card. And then it doesn't have to be an energy blade. This is just an example of a person that's weaved on their life, so it's a life wizard that's weaved into storm. It doesn't have to be a life, as I said. It can just be whatever school you are. So if you have a dual blade for ice, a fire, etc, but just make sure it's the weaving blade that you get from rank 1 storm weaving. And then after that, you are carrying an elemental trap and a elemental blade for niche specific fights. And then the last thing you have to be worried about is you do need a V plague. Now the V plague is only for Poseidon fight, so you don't need as many as you think. If you do have a pet, the spider pet specifically, or other pets that do exist in the game, or even a piece of gear that give you V-Plague, or if you're a death wizard already by default, you can just pack a V-Plague. But V-Plague is nice for that specific fight. If not, TC Plague is not a bad shout. You can also pack Legion Shield. I'm not going to write it on the slide, but you can pack Legion Shield if you want to as well. But it's just more valuable to pack a Plague or a V-Plague because it's on every target. A shield is only going to protect you from one hit, while the V-Plague is on every single enemy. That's the difference. So you have a couple different options on what that card it can be. So it could be an item card V-Plague, as I said, from a pet as well, a piece of gear, like I said, or if you're a death, you can just pack it in your main deck. And then if you don't want to do any of those options, like I said, just pack a TC Plague. Now, person 2, you have a pretty straightforward, easy roll, just like how it is in Mount Olympus strat that I posted on the channel. Very easy strat for person 2. You just need an item card, elemental blade, and star blade. You can get this from various sources. Depending on your school, you might get it on your deck or an amulet, or maybe even a wand. But realistically, you can just run the jewels. That's just what I did. So if you want to, you can get it from those various sources. You do need mass hex, so you can get that from like a wand or an amulet. Amulet's easier to get, it's more figure play friendly. If not, hey, if you have a headmaster wand, by all means go for it. Or if you're a balance wizard and you can use Wastelander wand, I believe, and there's also the boss rematch wand. I don't remember the name on top of my head, but that also gives mass hex, but it's exclusive to balance. But if you're not a balance wizard, just use the amulet from the bazaar. And then you also do need a windstorm, and this windstorm specifically has to be from a pet. But if person 1 is using treasure cards instead, like treasure card windstorms, then by all means you can rock an amulet. It just depends on what person 1 is running, and then you can circumvent that. But just remember, you know, prioritize what you need to prioritize, treasure card wise, etc. And you also are packing 2 cleanses. You realistically only need 1, but an additional is just a backup in case something goes wrong. You never know, but you do not need the second one. You realistically only need 1. And other than that, that's all you're packing as person 2. If you want to pack additional cards, by all means go for it. If you want to pack additional hits, additional buffs, go for it. Nothing's stopping you. You're only rocking a 4-card deck, so you have 3 extra slots. So if you want to carry like a wand hits or something like that, go for it. Now we move on to the Storm 1. So this is Storm 1, the one that's actually like hitting / help setting up for the majority of the fights. What they're doing is they do need Path B Stormlord. They only need at least tier 2. Now you aren't using it like 100% of the time. It's only for a specific niche thing, is if somebody lives and you need a backup hit and you use that Stormlord. Majority of the time you're really not using that Stormlord. It's just for emergencies. Other than that, you are rocking 2 different item card Stormblades. Now, one is from the amulet, so you can use like Dream Reaver if not, or if you have the decks, you can use that give you a Stormblade. If not, you can just simply run a Jewel, and then the other Stormblade is from a pet, so make sure you're running a pet that gives you a Stormblade. Very easy, very doable. You also do need Reinforce. Reinforce is specifically for Poseidon. If you do not want to use Reinforce, by all means, you can just slot in another buff. For example, like you can use your treasure card Stormblades if you want to. I just prefer the Reinforce just because I want to kill Poseidon as fast as I possibly can in that fight. And then the rest of your deck is Cleanse Charm, Windstorm, and then you are carrying a Triton because that is what you're using for Poseidon and other bosses where you have to use dual hitters. And your Triton doesn't need to be max tier or anything like that. You can literally use tier 1, but if you have max tier, that's amazing. If you have tier 2, that's amazing. But, you know, hopefully you can get your Spellments up and get more tiers on your Triton. And then the rest of your deck is just Stormblade treasure cards. You can pack more than 2, you only need 2, but if you want to pack more, by all means go for it. But realistically, your whole sideboard should just be treasure cards. And then we move on to the last person, which is Storm 2. Storm 2, you do need at least tier 2 sirens. Tier 2 bats is nice. That's why I recommend it on the slides. But if you don't have tier 2 bats, it's okay. You can rock tier 1. It's not the biggest deal. But you realistically do need tier 2 sirens to be able to even do the strat because you are splitting against multiple targets. If you have a higher tier of sirens, that's amazing as well. But if you have tier 2, that's the bare minimum of what you need. Other than that, your 2 item cards that you're running is a Storm Trap. You can get that from the Reaver Boots. If not, Tier Jewel is completely fine as well. Or if you want to rock a pet that gives a Storm Trap item card, that is completely valid as well. Just remember though, it does need to be 35%. That's why we're using specific things. And then make sure your pet also has Reinforce on it. If you want to use a different buff, by all means go for it, but it's just Reinforce is better due to the fact that you're getting an extra 5% on your hits versus like a 35 blade. And then you have plenty of space on your Storm 2. You're realistically only running 5 cards. So if you want to pack an additional Stormlord, if you want to pack additional hits like wand hits, if you want to pack sideboard stuff like treasure card hits, by all means go for it. You don't need it, but if your stats are pretty bad on your hitters, I would keep them up as emergencies. You never know. And that's realistically all the deck setup. So now we can move on to the actual strategies of the dungeon. So let's start off with the first fight, which is the Voracious Legionnaire. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. When you're pulling these mobs, it's kind of niche because I don't like how these mobs are centered. They kind of just roam around in the circles. So what I would recommend is try pulling them as best as you possibly can. If not, have the second person or third person or the fourth person drag a mob into the fight. Because yeah, you don't want to be like on round 2 and then all of a sudden a mob just joins at right before you click your cards. It's very annoying. I wish that they fix this and just have all the Legionnaires just sitting in one spot. But yeah, just remember for this part, you have to drag them in. But when it comes to strategies, they do have 1.6k health. And what we're just doing is we're using that donate pips, specifically the one that gives 3, as well as we're just using Mass Hex, we're using our Stormblade, Reinforce, and then we're just triple buffing into the Sirens. Very easy strat. I don't really have to explain this too in depth. This isn't like Mount Olympus where I have to explain certain reasonings, but all we're doing is just blade stacking into a Sirens. If you are not packing sirens for some reason, you can use Stormlord, as I said early on, as some couple different options. And if you aren't running storms, just realistically have any person use an AoE. It could be a myth using Arthurus or something like that and just helping them blade stack. If you are using a myth hitter, I do recommend just in regardless into this dungeon, you should have 2 hitters. Having 2 hitters for the majority of these fights are kind of nice, and it will speed things along much more than you realize. But as I said, yes, if you are running like a myth, you can just hit with an Arthurus. If you are using other schools, just use a 7-pip AoE. If for some reason you're using a death hitter, you can use Scarecrow. But just remember though, if you are splitting against multiple targets, keep in mind if you do need extra buffs or not. If you have to go for a turn 3, that is completely fine too. But this is just realistically what I was doing, and I'm just giving you guys some extra notes regarding this fight. And after some dialogue, you go to the first boss, which is Lamia. Now Lamia is, I'd say, up there with the annoying fights in this dungeon. I think second to Poseidon, or maybe like a little bit more annoying than Poseidon. Lamia has 3 minions, and those are storm sharks, and these storm sharks are very annoying. If you do not kill them on round 2, in my opinion, they can proceed to hit you with the Stormlord on round 3, and multiple of them can use Stormlord. And I'm not too sure, I probably need to double check this, but it felt like their Stormlords are doing way more than intended. I don't know, but it definitely was getting nuked by them. So for that reasoning, we are killing the mobs as fast as we can on round 2. Lamia is not the biggest deal in the world, but you do want to kill her on round 3. If not, she hits you with the Scarecrow on round 4, I believe. So that's some issues that you have in this fight. Another thing is that you can't bubble. So that's why we're not using bubbles at all in this whole entire strategy for the whole dungeon, because majority of these fights, they have bubbles. The bosses have bubbles, and some of the mobs have bubbles, so we're just completely chalking up storm bubbles entirely in this dungeon. And in Lamia, she will just bubble change it back as her cheat. You also don't want to blade. You can use blade storms in this fight. It will only affect the person that casted it, and they'll just put a starfall on the person that casted it. But if you do blade a person, you do get hit with the starfall. Well, not really hit, but she'll cast a starfall on that wizard that receives the buff. As well as, don't recommend using any sort of intinuate, because she will just replace it and put a shield on herself as well. So realistically, the only thing you can really do is maybe spam mass buffs like, you know, Blade Storm and such, because it only affects the person that's casting it, not the receiver. As well as you can use mass traps, so, you know, mass hex, etc, etc. But you can do different strategies for this fight. We are also using cleanse because she does have V-Plague in her deck. So that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit of an annoying fight. That's why we're having to use cleanses. We're having to use certain things, because the fact is her deck is kind of weird. Having V-Plagues, having plagues, as well as having you know, all these different cheats where you're just limited to basically using traps. It's very annoying. So that's all we're doing for this fight, where it comes down to, we're just sirensing the mobs and killing them round 2, because as I said, I'm not trying to get hit with Stormlords, and we've had a run where they just double Stormlord, and it was very annoying. It was very annoying, and this is before I changed the strat to multiple different times. But you want to kill the mobs ASAP, and then after that on round 3, you just Triton Lamia, and she's basically dead. And if for some reason that Triton doesn't kill, you have lightning bats, and if not, as I said early on in this video, carry additional hits. If you don't trust your hitters, is completely fine, and I get that. But if you are running other schools in this fight, I do recommend having like a myth or something like that to AoE the mobs, and then after that the other person can be whoever. If you want to rock a fire hitter in that fight, go for it. If you want to rock a death hitter, by all means go for it. Or if you're just rocking a storm, you guys already know by default what I'm trying to explain. But if you are rocking 2 separate schools, you do want to have, I guess, universal buffs. So spamming, you know, having 2 different supporters in slot 1 and slot 2, spamming universal buffs, that's nice, just because, you know, buff both hitters, and they can use those to their advantage. But I would, in my opinion, I would prefer killing the mobs as soon as possible versus Lamia. Yes, she spams V-Plagues and such, but I feel like the mobs are way worse than her, just because the fact is, if you get hit with a Stormlord into a Stormlord and then possibly another Stormlord, you kind of just lose. So I would rather kill the minions as fast as you can, and then killing Lamia. Maybe if you need to extend it to round 4, that's fine. I mean, you get hit with the Scarecrow, that's okay, but I'd rather get hit with the Scarecrow than get hit with multiple Stormlords. There's a big difference in here. Other than that, Lamia is fine. It's just she has like some niche things that you have to be wary about. So don't aura, don't attenuate, and if you are going to blade, only use what's it called, multiple AoE buffs. So like Blade Storm, that's basically what I mean. But I wouldn't blade yourself and just basically only use traps. Once you kill Lamia, you can technically, you know, use blade. So if you want to kill Lamia first and then blade stack into a hit, that is completely fine too, but you are worried about getting hit with a Stormlord. But you can also circumvent that by using like that V-Plague that you are packing on Storm 1. So that's something that you can do as well. I'm just giving you guys additional strategies. But after Lamia, you move on to Orion. I think that's how you pronounce it, but it's this Stallion mob. He is really not that hard. He doesn't really have any cheats. I mean, I guess if you trap him, he does like an aura or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but all you need to worry about is just blade stack into a hit. That's all you're doing on this guy. We aren't using a bubble because he does have bubbles in his deck. He has casted it once or twice before, and realistically that's all we're doing. We're just doing basically what we did on the Legionnaire mobs, but this time on Arion, and we're taking account that he has a little bit more HP, so we're extending it to a third round on purpose so we can get some additional buffs to Siren. Thing crazy, just remember stagger join if need be, and make sure you guys are pulling bosses. Whoever's person's won, make sure you are pulling the bosses. I forget to mention this all the time, but it's written on the slide, so if something I miss, it's always written on the slide by default. Well, yeah, you're just spamming buffs. Make sure you use donate pips and a bunch of storm blades, star blades, a bunch of the item cards that were listed on the deck setups, and just going for path piece irons and killing everybody. That's all this fight is. If you are running myths, same thing, same strategy. You might have to take it to round 4 if need be, but just blade stack into a Orthrus, I guess. If you are rocking 2 hitters, you can have, blade storm spam and just, each individual hitter blade themselves, and then just have both hitters split against 2 mobs. That's another option as well. So you have various options that you can do for Arion as well. Then after that, we move on to the next boss fight, which is Akheilos. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not that great with pronouncing names, but he is a balance and myth, or myth and balance boss that you do end up fighting. Now with this boss fight, you do have to be wary that you might have to take this to a round 3, and the only reason I'm saying that is he does have elemental shield and spirit shield in his deck, so if he ends up using that on himself, he does live from the sirens, and that is just completely RNG. And if that does happen, that is where you take it to a round 3, and you have to use your Stormlord or bats or have additional hits. You can even buff up the Stormlord and bats. So I have it listed as pass, but if you want to, you can blade the hitter, and depending on how much HP he lives with, he might live with probably like maybe 500 at most or something, but I think it's a little bit less than that. It depends on your Siren's path and how many tiers, not really path, but how many tiers you have on your Sirens. But you're just doing the same thing as you were doing on the Legionnaires, where you're just buff stacking into a Sirens. He doesn't have anything cheat-wise that you should be worried about, and I would just do this. It's straightforward. Most of the bosses are pretty straightforward in Atlantea. It's just 2 specific ones that are very annoying. But that's it for this fight. You guys get the gist. If you are running myths, what you can also do is if you are rocking 2 hitters, you can have one person just straight up target the boss and have someone else AoE split and kill the mobs. That's another thing. But same thing with this fight. I believe there's storm sharks, and yeah, I do not like those storm lords, so be wary on that. Then we move on to the puzzle boss. Now, you don't have to realistically fail the puzzle if you don't want to. I recommend failing the puzzle, as I always state, due to the fact is you do get spell elements from here, as well as this boss does have a chance of dropping a pet, and that is specifically the life Skelterion pet. So if you are trying to chase all the Skelterion pets, which I will be talking in a future video because I've already made all the hybrids at the time I'm recording this video, but you do have to farm Teles. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, hopefully I'm not butchering these names too bad, guys. But basically, you fail the puzzle. By failing the puzzle, you just spam the lever a bunch of times, and she'll just spawn, and she's like, okay, fight me. And once you do that, you basically organize yourselves and do exactly the same as you were doing in the previous fight, where you just place stack sirens. Now, another thing is, I don't recommend trapping. If you do trap, she does have cheats, so do not trap in this fight. She is fire, so she does have some cheats. She will literally hit you with a brim on the person that's casting a trap, so don't trap in this fight. Do not recommend. So that's why we're just blade stacking into sirens. If you're myth, Orthrus. If you're another school, just AoE. If you have 2 hitters, you guys can both AoE. It's a very straightforward fight. There's nothing crazy other than just don't trap. That's all you realistically need to know. Don't trap, and you won't get hit with the brimstone. And other than that, just hope that you get a Skelterion pet. If not, well, run it back. But I would realistically finish the whole dungeon. That's probably why you're watching this video anyways. Then we move on to the Lost Maiden. The Lost Maiden does have a cheat where she will hit with you with the rod depending on how many blades you have, I believe. So like if you have a blade, she'll get pips back. It's path B raw, and she'll get pips back for how many blades you have. So if I have one blade, she only gets like one pip back. So you will take a hit on round one. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but she doesn't have that much HP either. She only has 4k. It's just a Queen Calypso model, and just, you know, renamed it to Lost Maiden. But realistically, all you're doing is just doing what you're doing against like the Legionnaires at the beginning, where you just buff stack into a Sirens. Now, what I do recommend doing is you could pull the life mob instead of the boss. I know the life mob does have bubble, so if you are trying to risk a strat where you are using a bubble, preferably pull the life mob instead of the Lost Maiden. Lost Maiden didn't have a bubble from my testing, and I believe the other mob that's in this fight doesn't have a bubble as well. But I remember the life mob does have a bubble because I remember visually seeing it. So that's something that you can be wary about if you are trying to bubble in this fight. And if you are using other hitters, as I've been saying in this whole video, AoE, basically AoE, just Orthrus. If not, you know, use other schools. Like I said, you can use a Scarecrow, you can use other schools just in general, have two hitters, have one person maybe target the boss and the other person split against two targets. You have a couple different options. The main fights like these aren't that bad. It's only like two specific fights, as I said, that are a little bit more iffy, that require a little bit more thinking. So there's that. But after you go to the Lost Maiden, or after you defeat her, I mean, you do fight the Trierarchs. Yeah, I'm butchering names, but these guys are annoying. Now, these guys do spam shields up the wazoo. They literally love shields, and they have, I believe, brace, or not brace, but fortify as well. So they literally love shielding. Now, another thing is what basically made me go to the conclusion of don't use bubbles is these guys have a spell, specifically an Oni. I don't know why. They have an Oni that is a hidden bubble. It's an Ice Oni, which confused the hell out of me. Because it's been so long since I've done Atlantea, I totally forgot they had this in their deck. So, with that conclusion is why we don't use bubbles at all in this whole dungeon. Because these guys are in the Poseidon fight as well. And yeah, they love to spam Oni sometimes. So imagine trying to kill Poseidon and the one buff that you need is the bubble and they decide to bubble change. Very annoying. Even if they get, you know, like let's say they hit with an Oni and then you bubble change, there's a possible chance the other Trierarch is going to hit you with another Oni to change the bubble again. So be wary about that. And other than that, they just spam shields. So there is a more likely chance that you will have to take this to a round 3 depending on the shields. And I do recommend, I like not as much as the other fights because I don't really mention it, but on this specific fight, I would recommend stagger joining on your hitters. Matter of fact, you just do it because the fact is you're manipulating mob AI, and if you do stagger join, the mobs aren't going to target you. And what they do have, I believe they have the golem cards and they have them path B, and so if they do hit your storms, they will give you a chromatic shield of a storm shield, so that will more likely be more annoying. So some things that you have to be worried about. Other than that, they don't have cheats, of course, they're just mobs. So just go for AoE Sirens, and if you don't kill, like I said, just go for Stormlord in round 3. And if you want to buff up that Stormlord, by all means, go for it. But you shouldn't need to. I mean, maybe you don't have the correct buffs or something, or stats are a little bit shocked. Then for sure buff that Stormlord. If not, just don't. And you do have that bats as like a safety net in case one of them lives. But like I said, stagger join, stagger join, stagger join. Manipulating mob AI at its finest. And then finally we go to the Poseidon fight. I'm pretty sure all you guys are waiting for this. But we move on to the Poseidon fight as well, the final fight of the dungeon. Now Poseidon does drop the Storm Skeletorion pet, so if you are trying to collect all of them, he does drop that is in his drop pool. He does have some cheats, but realistically you don't really activate him as much as you think. And also he doesn't have his trap cheat that he has on standard. On standard, if you trap him, specifically like, you know, a storm trap or whatever, right, or like an Ellie trap, he will cheat cast and remove it. But on challenge mode, he does not have that cheat. I don't know why. I'm assuming it's because they're trying to follow Rochambeau, so that's why you're allowed to trap him since he's storm. That is just my guess, but I never bothered trying to use other spells in this fight because realistically all we're doing is just making sure that we kill on round 2. Just remember though, specifically for this fight, instead of the Storm 1 being in slot 3, which he has been in, or he or she has been in every single fight, now they are being the last person instead. So when you are looking at this strat and you are doing this fight, remember that the person that is hitting with the Triton using this specific strat should be in the last slot instead of the third slot, specifically for Poseidon, because you do need to have one extra buff to kill Poseidon, because I want to get him out of here ASAP. He has his annoying natural attack that does so much damage. He also has Stormlord in his deck. Also, he does cast Infoul, so he's piercing you as well. So if you don't have that much resist, well, he's piercing you even more. So that's why we're just killing him as fast as we possibly can. And obviously, you are pulling him to slot 1, so that's something you realistically don't have to worry about. So he's not going to target something that isn't across from him. So if you just pull him on slot 1, he'll always hit the person that pulled him. And then as well as make sure you stagger join on your hitters, because since there are the ice mobs in this fight, yeah, they can use that golem and use path B, and then they spam shields on themselves. So just manipulating mob AI and stagger joining on both people. The first two people don't stagger join, of course. But yes, we're using basically mass traps, spamming that, and as well as using some storm blades and LE blades, so then the person in the last slot can use their Triton and kill Poseidon. Then after that, it's just the ball game at that point. We are using V-Plague, and the reason why we're using V-Plague is because you can get hit with multiple frost giants, which is very annoying. So I do recommend using a V-Plague. If not, if you aren't a death or you don't have an item card, as I stated early on in this video, carry a Plague. If you don't have either, you can carry a Legion Shield, but Plague would be way better than carrying a Legion Shield. Due to the fact is it affects all the targets versus just having Legion Shields to protect against one attack. There are 3 mobs, so you want to protect against all 3, and you don't want to get nuked. So I do recommend carry some sort of debuff on that person in slot 1 for specifically round 3. And then after that, we're just buff stacking into a Sirens. Now, there is a chance of the mobs living, remember, because, hey, if your Sirens isn't maxed out or anything like that, or isn't, like, tiered up, they have a chance of living. And if that does happen, just remember, there is a Stormlord in Storm 1's deck, so they can always have that as an option. If not, as I stated early on in the video when I was talking about deck setups, you have a lot of different options to add into your deck, and you can literally, realistically, I do recommend carrying a Stormlord on Storm 2 as well, just in case you do not kill the mobs in this fight. If not, you have treasure card hits. I would assume you do as well. But it's mainly the mobs that are annoying in this fight, not really Poseidon. Poseidon is, if you keep him alive for too long, he's going to end up using Stormlord or using his natural attack, and he'll end up killing your support in literally round 3, round 4, which is not what you want. And I've had a run where I've gotten hit with the Stormlord into 2 Frost Giants, which is not fun. It is not fun. So it's realistically, if you just kill Poseidon, you're fine. You're fine. Now, if you are trying to use other schools, same gimmick, kill Poseidon as fast as you can, get him out the fight. So have a one hitter, it doesn't matter what school they are realistically, and just help them buff stack and kill Poseidon fast as you possibly can. Because yes, he is a force to be reckoned with, and you just want him out. Then after that, you can take as many rounds as you need. Literally take as many rounds as you need to kill the mobs. If you want to use Orthros, if you want to use other cards, by all means, go for it. But those mobs is literally what's going to take another 3 rounds depending on your strat. So spam AoEs, they'll have shields on them. They'll probably be using fortifies, and they're probably also using golems. And if you are trying to use a bubble, be wary, they have that Oni that's a hidden bubble. So a lot of things to be worried about when it comes to the mobs. Not so much Poseidon, and there's not really a cheat sheet that I need to make for Poseidon, because he's dead round 2 with blades, and you can blade and trap against him. Yeah, I feel like that explains more than you guys need. So that's realistically all we're doing in this fight. And that's the whole dungeon for Atlantea. And then, of course, if you are trying to do Sand Squid and stuff like that, as I said early on in the video, simply just watch the other video where I talk about all the side bosses. And if you're trying to farm spell elements, watch the other video as well. And that's basically all of Atlantea talked about in this whole video. If you have any concerns, questions, let me know in the Discord. I'm more likely to look at the Discord than I am the comment section, but I do look at the comment section time to time when I do have free time and respond to any questions you guys have. But I try my best to incorporate, of course, all the other schools and just talk about it. I know I didn't visually show you guys that, but I'm verbally telling it because I've already written a strat for storms, and writing strats for every other school is a little bit more annoying than you guys think. So if I just did every single school combo, we would be here for hours, and this would turn into an hour-long video for no reason, for literally no reason. But I'm verbally telling you what you guys can do in all the fights, and you hopefully that helps you guys. If not, I mean, if people ask me like to make fire hitter strat or like a myth hitter strat, I can always do it in my downtime, but it just depends on my time. Other than that, I hope you guys get your pets if you are farming the pets. Hopefully you get your badges if you are trying to get the badges to craft, or not craft the gear, to get all the challenge med gear. Other than that, that's basically it. If you want to see all the strats, as I said, they will be in the Discord into a later date, probably the next couple days, as well as hopefully all the images and the videos in the background, giving you a better visualization of how the fights work. Other than that, that's it for me. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.